Hi, I'm Jason Fisk.
I'm Mike Tarcella of Team National. Our group finished fourth in the MarkStrat simulation of the summer session. As the graphic shows, we started this contest first overall in period one and held the position of either first or second 3 times during the course of the simulation. But we ended the competition a disappointing fourth overall in share price and third overall in unit sales after faltering in the final week. So we really thought we would have a far better showing, and we're not happy with the result.
We started with our Noon and Nova products, which are focused on the shoppers and high earners markets. In period four, we added Nolo to target the savers market, and later our Note/Knox product that focused on explorers.
Noon was our bread and butter product for most of the 6-week game. Due to our misfortune in period six, it accounted for all of our profit that period. As we began the simulation, we found success as this product most closely aligned with shoppers' ideal values really from the start. After a pretty slow start, we initiated an R&D project for Noon in period two, closely matching shoppers' expectations in this segment, especially on power and price. And it worked. We gained significant share in pretty short order. Noon was the product leader overall by period four. We sold 1.5 million Noon units overall, and that was far more than our closest competitor. So even though we lost share toward the end, Noon was still the highest revenue brand in the simulation and had a market-leading 13.3% of the Sonites market. Nova began the simulation most closely aligning with high earners' ideal values. So this product held the number one or number two market position in the segment up until the final period. And we were able to charge a slightly higher price than our competition because this was a high quality product. Unfortunately, we made several mistakes, especially in period five, which we'll talk about shortly. Nova ended a distant number three in the high earners market, and it detracted from our overall performance in the final period. Okay, next is Nolo. It's our offering in the savers market, which started as an R&D project in period three. Our strategy here was to align with customer expectations based almost entirely on power and price. We attempted to create a very low-priced, high-powered product that we thought would take share. But after 3 periods of positioning and repositioning, we were never competitive with this product, and we finished a distant fifth in this market with just 55,000 sales over the final 3 periods.
Lastly, there was our Note/Knox product, which targeted the explorers market. We'd taken out a loan in period three to fund this R&D project. Everything we looked at suggested we could take a big share here because the dominant player didn't have a product that was aligned well with the market expectations. By the time we released the product in period four, another team had already launched a successful product that quickly grabbed the market share with their first mover benefits. Because of this, we were never really a big factor in this fairly small market niche and pulled the product in period six to avoid further losses.
All right, so next, let's look at the top 10 lessons we learned specifically in the MarkStrat game. First, I think it pays to be aggressive. Establish your market position in the most attractive market really as soon as you can. That's what we did with Noon with great success. With a cumulative growth rate in the mid 20% range, we dwarfed the others in unit sales by period end. But lesson two is the counter to lesson one. Don't spend a lot of money on markets with little to no growth. That speaks to what we did with Knox. We underestimated the risk of not doing well enough in a lackluster explorers market, and there was not a rising tide to lift our boat there. Lesson three, even very price-sensitive shoppers can perceive your product as cheap. Again, our goal with Nolo was to focus almost entirely on high power at low price and not worry about design, display, and all of the other factors. And that just didn't work. And we'll delve into that a little bit more in our presentation a little later on. Lesson four is a saying used by traders, and it applies here. Cut your losses and let your winners ride. We repeatedly made the mistake of thinking we could fix Nolo and Knox, our savers and explorers offerings. And honestly, we would have been better to put more of our budget into noon. Lesson 5 is get a lead and keep a lead. In hindsight, we really should have taken our R&D loan very soon, as soon as we could in the period. I think you're rewarded in this game by taking big risks, but you need to have first mover advantage and take those risks early on. Lesson 6, consumers' product expectations do change over time. So you need to prepare for that by predicting where the mood of the market is headed. We learned this in the high earners market, where the need for power slowly declined period by period. And this made our decision to do an R&D project targeting power in that market a mistake. Lesson 7, more is not always better. Just because consumers are choosing products based on particular factors, say power, you're not going to win by turning power all the way to 11, because some consumers are turned off by features they don't even think they need, or too much of what they think they need. Lesson 8 is do not skimp on ad research. Simple enough, but we did that in periods 4 through 6, and that hurt us. Lesson 9 is make sure you strike gold at least twice. We needed at least 2 outright segment leaders to win this competition, and we only had 1. Finally, lesson 10 is to continue to seek advice. We did that early on, but we didn't ask the prof or anyone else, really for that matter, for advice after period 4, and that haunted us.
Now let's look at what we've learned in the simulation regarding key areas of marketing management. Concerning targeting, Chapter 7 taught us that we can't be all things to all people. MarkStrat took this a step further. We learned that market segments may share some characteristics, but they are distinct for a reason. With Nova, we made the big mistake of going after 2 segments late in the period in the simulation. We were correct in analyzing that these 2 distinct groups were coming closer together in terms of ideal values, but what about psychographics, their attitude, personalities, lifestyles? These 2 groups were segmented for a good reason, and we shouldn't have targeted them together. We lost an amazing amount of share by trying to target both segments at once. Our high earners market share went from the mid-20s range to less than 3 in a single period, and we didn't gain nearly enough in the professionals market to make that worthwhile. Regarding segmentation, Chapter 7 lecture taught us that when defining a segment, ask these questions. Does it have definable characteristics? Can customers there be profitably persuaded to buy our product? Is the market opportunity large enough? We should have looked back at these lessons before entering the Explorers market. The segment wasn't big enough to justify the cost of entry. We did poorly there, and I think we would have even if we had made better advertising and commercial team decisions. As far as product goes, we learned in Chapter 9 the importance of keeping our products distinct and your message sharp. We did that well with Noon, and to a lesser degree with Nova, but we failed to do this with our other 2 offerings. Regarding Nova, there were some product stories that would have been better told. If we had a chance to do the simulation over again, we would focus a lot more on the points of differentiation, especially as this product matured. A lot of our competition focused on building up the power and the price of their products with R&D, but we think the power and price became points of parity, especially with the introduction of LOA in the high earners market. The real point of differentiation for our product was its superior design. It had a pretty good display, and looking back, I think we could have touted our points of differentiation a lot more. Our biggest product challenge, other than managing R&D projects, was trying to gauge customer demand and set production targets. We'd start with a baseline, but it was difficult to figure out how much share we would take or lose. We did a better job of this with Noon, but that was largely because of the law of large numbers working in our favor. Our production could be off by tens of thousands of units with this product, and it would still be within 20% of the period's unit sales.
Okay, let's shift gears and talk about price in MarkStrat. We learned back in week 3 that in order to sell, you need to convince customers that your product's benefits are greater than the costs. And we did this early in the contest, and I think we lost sight of it later on. So I would say we did have a clear pricing objective one of our products. We went after share with Noon. We targeted current profit with Nova, used a low price point with Nolo, and a market price point with Knox. But we also differentiated our pricing policies pretty well. For example, with Nova, we kept a slightly higher price, and we were very careful not to start a price war because our per unit costs in that market were pretty high, I should say, for that product. Again, where we messed up was in focusing on price to the detriment of benefits. When we redid Nova, high earners saw that product as cheap. And this after we spent a lot of effort to be seen as the Cadillac offering in that market. So as a result, that R&D project wrecked our brand image. And then with savers, the bargain hunters out there, we tried to undercut everyone on price, but far too much. Instead, we should have tried to price the product really in line with what customers expected to pay. And I think we would have sold more.
Now, let's take a moment to talk about place. As far as our distribution channels go, overall, our goal was to keep commercial spending roughly in line with our competition. For the most part, we did that. We were very competitive with the top teams, even though we ended the competition with 3 products instead of the competition's 4 or 5. But in terms of overall spend, we didn't do a good enough job keeping up. We let Team L back in the game, and this is partly because they ramped up their spending on commercial salespeople, especially in mass merchandisers. We finished 3rd overall in mass merchandisers channel spending, and we should have been number 1. Let's also take a look at our coverage. We could have focused a lot more on our distribution KPIs found on our company scorecard, shown in the graphic. This chart pretty much explains the missed opportunity in distribution. We lost no sales in periods 1 through 3 because we had plenty of coverage. Our coverage continued to build through period 4, and then we began to lose sales because we didn't keep this as a competitive advantage. Lastly, let's take a look at inventory. The one good thing we did was not lose many sales due to not making enough product. The only time this happened was period 3. In all other periods, we were just fine. We did, however, let our inventory holding costs build in the later half of the competition. In retrospect, we could have been more successful if we were more focused on these KPIs.
Okay, thank you, Jason. And lastly, let's talk about promotion. And in MarketStrat, that really means advertising. We did fairly well with advertising until we were outspent late in the game, especially by Team L. But here's what we did well. Early on, we built awareness for all of our products, and we supported each one of those with a pretty healthy budget. And with Nova, we focused our ad messages on perceived power problem. We had a perceived power problem there, and we focused on it very early on to the point where we had completely overcome it by the middle of the simulation. All right, but our biggest mistake was not spending more to protect our Noon franchise. If we did nothing else, we could have locked up this competition by more heavily promoting our #1 brand. And we knew this, and yet we compromised Noon by promoting upstart brands too aggressively. We were concerned at the time that 80% of the target market already knew about Noon, so we should try to build awareness elsewhere. Aha, but we learned advertising is more than building brand awareness. I would say we could have and should have spent more on ad research as well. This could have helped us counter campaigns from competitors such as Solo in the shoppers market. They took a little share away from us at the end. The only market where we truly wasted our advertising dollars, in my opinion, was Nolo, our savers offering. In particular, we made a big mistake in period 4 here. We thought we would announce our offering to the world, would spend $3 million or so on advertising the first year, price this product lower than everyone else in the market, and would nail it. But what we didn't do is explain why we were different than anybody else. Just going after awareness against entrenched competitors, that was a mistake. And it did nothing to take share away from Locke, the ultimate champion in that savers market. As the KPI shows, we had it right for a while, but then we faltered at the end. All right, so to sum up our experience with MarketStrat, we did well, but we faltered late. Our competition did a better job overall, focusing on some of the key attributes, especially in the final weeks. But I do think we learned a lot, both from our successes and our failures. And our share price was pretty volatile, but I think we may have learned more than some of the other teams did because of that. For Team National, I'm Mike Tarzella.
I'm Jason Fisk.
Thank you very much.